Hi, this is John Dempsey. I'm the chair of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and this is our June meeting. And we're in person with some people, one member online. I can't remember who's taking notes. Clint's taking notes today. And our first order of business is to see if there are any public comments on anything that's not in the agenda. So it doesn't seem to be anybody here. So our second order of business is to approve the minutes. And at this point, I'd like to thank Jerry for doing the minutes at the last meeting. It was good. A very thorough job. Any addition, subtractions to the minutes? I feel funny. I don't know who I'm talking to. Camera.
Big brothers over there.
I move to accept to approve the minutes.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Is there a
I
second?
second.
Okay. And all those in favor, go around the table. Jerry? Yes. Dean?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes,
And the chair votes yes. So the minutes have been passed. Thank you very much. Now, Joe Albuquerque was going to come on.
He is actually with us.
Oh, good. Oh, great.
Go ahead.
So just a little bit of background before I introduce Joe. This is an issue that has come up time and time again with school renovations about what seems like the wasteful throwing away disposal of all of school furniture. And so we gnash our teeth over this and we think nothing changes. So at Dean's urging, Joe Albuquerque, who took over from Matt Gillis, Matt Gillis at meetings with Joe Albuquerque, is so long he's been here, but he is the director of operations. And I think he'll be able to tell us some of what they have done about recycling, reusing some of the furniture and equipment, and why it is so difficult that we can't reuse or recycle most of it. And with that, I'm thinking Joe is going to appear.
Joe, would you mind turning on your camera? Thank you. Perfect.
There he is.
Welcome.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, everyone.
I'm
you hear
John
me?
Dempsey.
Yeah.
We're this close together, probably physically, several years ago. He was in charge of the 111 Cypress building, which is in place by the 22 Tappan Street building. And that was, I live on Brington Road, and that was the parking lot I used to cut through multiple times a day. So Joe probably saw me going through. I probably saw him. We have a common friend, the van driver. So but it's nice to see you in the flesh, Joe. Welcome to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Let's go around the table and introduce ourselves to Joe. And start with
Joe, John King, with DPW. We met the other day.
John Dempsey.
Clint Richmond, town meeting member, precinct 6 as well, and SWAC member.
Dean Cody.
Jerry Lambert.
I'm Eleanor. I'm the assistant recycling coordinator for the town.
Katie Weatherseed, Zero Waste Program Manager for DPW.
Hey, Joe, Alexandra Vecchio, Director of Sustainability, former Director of Parks.
Hi, Alexandra.
And we have Kevin Johnson.
Kevin Johnson, Deputy Commissioner of Operations for Public Works, Highway and Sanitation Director.
and I'm Susan Ritling. I'm a SWAC member.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you can see she's on. Good. Wonders of technology.
It's like she's almost here.
All right, so Joe, as I explained on the phone, in our telephone conversation, I think that you got a letter from Katie and that's communicated with Eleanor. We're just kind of interested in when we have these big renovations of the schools, what happens and why can't more of the furniture get recycled perhaps? And what does get recycled or reused?
Well, first, I want to thank the board members and everyone for inviting me. I appreciate that. And I want to touch on some of the work that we've done since I started back last summer and right after July 4th. I came on board. So last summer was, or as you can just imagine, a lot of work on closing down Clark Road lease. The old Pierce School was closing. So there was a lot of, and then obviously Lincoln School being rehabbed, a lot of painting, a lot of new carpeting happening at Lincoln School. So a lot of the things that I guess first I would say is it's always important to try to see if you can reduce the amount of waste generated. And some of the things that we did last summer and since I've come on board is, as you mentioned, John, reuse, repurpose, recycle. What can we do? How can we do it? And so, for example, I'll start with the Clark Road. A lot of the, I would say, tables, desks, wall partitions we used at we were able to reuse and repurpose at Baldwin School. John, for example, I just met John King last Friday. He came by. That desk in my office was Clark Road. So we're reusing and repurposing as best as possible. I'll look at the old Pierce School, for example. The lockers that were there, we actually repurposed and reused it for public safety. Brookline Police Department, the fire department are using some of it. We were able to donate 15 or so plus or minus cafeteria tables and kitchen equipment to St. Mary's School, which is located both in Milton, Mass. And Brookline. And we were able to also in Brookline reach out to Little Children's Schoolhouse, where we donated small children furniture so that we could actually utilize, repurpose that. I would say there is Hancock Academy was another location that we donated kitchen equipment and additional folding chairs from Pierce. The Great Exchange through Recycling Works, which is a DPW partner, they removed unused curriculum materials and small furniture so that they could actually use as part of their program. We reached out to a metals recycler, and they were able to take some of the lockers that we were not able to reuse and repurpose, older desks that we weren't able to shelving, file cabinets, and even some of the old chairs with metal legs. They were able to take that and repurpose. So as you can see that we've, and I would say even when we moved into Driscoll, we didn't have some ADA compliant science labs. So we took those, we didn't even put them in storage. We just used them for conference room areas and repurposed those science lab tables for conference room areas. And once we got the ADA compliant science labs for the K through 8 over at Driscoll. So we look at ways and areas where we can reuse, repurpose, recycle, and most importantly, reduce the amount of waste that can be generated from these large scale projects, like the closure of Clark Road, and obviously closing down and preparing to demo and replace Pierce. Another example of some of the things that we also did, I think someone said equipment. We had 15, I'd say, newer projectors that we were able to salvage, and we used those and repurposed it both at OLS and Fisher Hill. Whiteboards that we were able to save. We've been able to use it at Clark, not at Clark Road, but Baldwin and OLS in Fisher Hill as well. Some of the lockers I mentioned at Pierce, we were able to use it for Fisher Hill, I believe, in the Public Works area. Obviously Fisher Hill is broken up and it's a multi-purpose building. But as you can tell, there's been a lot of work trying to reuse, repurpose, salvage, and recycle as where we can. I hope that's I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, we're certainly encouraged, I think. Are there members of the committee? Questions?
I'm curious as to, does this mean that there's all, excuse me.
Bless you.
You have to buy all new equipment for the Pierce School, all new desks, all new lockers, all that stuff. Nothing can be just saved for the Pierce School.
So the answer to that question is it'll be new equipment. If there is, obviously the biggest issue there is a couple of things. One, what is it salvageable? And we try to do that as much as possible during the Pierce relocation, using as much as we could for OLS, Fisher Hill, and obviously, Baldwin too, if we were able to use anything from there. I think the big question here is also storage. We don't, I'll be honest, we have small storage areas and facilities throughout the school district, and we try to save as much as possible. Bless you, in all the different locations. And also now at Baldwin, where we can try to save some of the, like, for example, we had an excess amount of stools that we were able to get out of science labs from Pierce, and it was a lot. So rather than, obviously getting rid of, which made no sense at all, we were able to stack them and keep them over at Baldwin, because we have some small storage space to keep some of those types of things, so that if anything happens, we have, obviously we have parts that we could keep and salvage some of the parts for stools and things like that.
Good, thank you.
I think it's just that, I think excuse me?
That answers the question. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And bless you. I didn't know if you heard me.
Joe, how do you reach out to different departments or, St. Mary's, the little corner schoolhouse? How do they find out that there's equipment that could possibly be reused? What kind of outreach is there?
We internally in our office, if we know that there are, let's say there are bookshelves available, we'd reach out to libraries or churches, church groups, to see if they're interested in accepting these donations. I think it's something that we try to do. It's a conscientious thing. Number one thing is try to reduce waste, and the first thing we should do is see if these things are capable of being repurposed and reused by others, whether it be a church group or a small preschool within the Brookline area. We're very fortunate to have contacts already for some of these locations. Obviously, Boston PD and Fire internal, but obviously we try to reach out as much as possible to the contacts we have already and see if they need any of this. And sometimes, some of these folks will provide us with some other contacts that we'll try to use and reach out as well. I think that's the most important thing, is try to reach out proactively and see what we can do before we actually you know, throw things out.
Did I understand that the student desks that have the tubular steel and then some kind of a plastic seat and desktop? Did I understand that a metal recycler was able to take those, kind of knock those things apart and use the metal?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that
Do
was,
they pay us or do we pay them?
that's a great question. I'll get back to you on the answer on that. I want to say, yeah, let me find out. Let me confirm that, because that happened just before I came on board. But I do know that we had a metals recycler come in, walk through the areas, and able to, you know, pick things that they were capable of picking up, taking away. So
Great.
that's a good question. Thank you.
Dean,
Yes, hi, Joe.
Hi, good evening.
When the new Pierce is open again, will you be able to reuse the desks, the chairs, the cabinets, bookshelves, everything from OLS and from Fisher so that they can go right back into the new school?
Well, that's an interesting question. The answer is I think what we'll probably end up doing is using some of that for other schools, because there is a budget for furniture for the new school, and we'll look at OLS and Fisher Hill for a replacement of existing schools, which are more compatible for some of the same furniture that's laid out at OLS and Fisher Hill. But also we probably be mindful of whether or not there will be another school project down the line in the future. You know, I think we have to take into account a lot of these things and factors within the school district and obviously within the community.
I mean, Joe, that's one of the reasons we brought this subject up and wanted you to come, is it seems wasteful from a zero waste aspirational perspective. You know, we have a zero waste manager in DPW. We're always working on reducing waste. And I believe the policy, and I don't know if it's a written policy, but the schools seem to have all new furniture, all new equipment for every new school that opens up.
Mm-hmm.
And for instance, anecdotally, at least one of the teachers at Driscoll's spoke to us about this fact, and she wanted to move a lot of her furniture from her classroom of 25 years over to the new Driscoll, and was told she wasn't allowed to, right? She couldn't take her desk, she couldn't do anything like that. It seemed wasteful to me and a lot of other people. So I was kind of hoping that that policy isn't hard and fast, and that the new school can in fact take good stuff, as well as other schools that need replacements. But I don't know, I just didn't like that.
I would say that there's a pretty good chance that we might be able to use smart boards or technology that is within OLS and Fisher Hill and repurpose that. Just because of the fact that we were able to salvage some of the stuff at Old Pierce, at least the newer materials. Obviously, we'd probably have to add to that because of just a square footage of the new building versus these other two schools that we're using right now. Again, it's one of these things that we have to factor in and look at what we can and cannot do. And I think one of the, you talk about furniture, but there's also equipment and technology that we have throughout, I would say OTL, building department, IT, we probably use some of the stuff that we have on hand or in storage, to look at whether or not that can be utilized, and repurposed, sooner than later as well.
Thank you.
Good. Are there any other questions? Susan?
I did have a, you know,
Hi,
you mentioned
Susan.
that there's a budget for new furniture and there's no storage. I wonder if have you considered the cost benefit of renting storage rather than buying new? If there's, you know, classroom furniture that's reusable, would it be cheaper to store it for however long it takes rather than buy new?
Well, I think, Susan, that's a great question. You know, I came from the healthcare field, and we repurposed, reused, recycled as much as we could in the healthcare field. And one of the things, whether it be furniture, waiting room, side chairs, tables, etc., we always looked at ways to repurpose, and that's what we did. Is we looked at storage as an option, and I think that's something that we should definitely consider and weigh and look at the analysis in terms of future projects, whatever the next project will be. I think it's definitely something that we should, simply put it, Susan, we should do the due diligence and analysis
Great.
and look at it.
I mean, maybe some of the stuff is beat up and nobody wants to use it anymore. I get that, but there may be some triage that can be done.
Yeah, I mean, but it's a really good question, because you always have to weigh the storage costs, but also what would it's the storage cost, but also what are we trying to repurpose, reuse? Is it in good condition, excellent condition, very good? You have to look at all these things, but I think an analysis is definitely needed in the future for future projects, because there is some good equipment out there. I mean, some of the stools that we got, some of the tables we got, the whiteboards we were using, like I said, at Baldwin or OLS at Fisher Hill, were in really good, decent condition. So it merits the question of new versus used, and used in terms of use plus storing it for X amount of years, depending on how long it takes. The Pierce School, I think, is going to be 2.5 years. So we have to think about those and weigh all the factors.
Well, thanks for considering it.
Well, I think it's something, we're all taxpayers, and I believe, it's important to look at that way, especially if it's in a good, decent condition, and really think about whether you can first, before you even, Susan, put it into storage, can we use it somewhere else where it might be needed now? I mean,
yeah.
I like the idea of, I always use the at least the 3 R's: reuse, repurpose, recycle, and start there. And then, obviously, if we can reuse and save, and we get a good bang for the buck for storage, then it's a win-win. So I think we have to look at and look at the due diligence and look at the analysis and see what makes sense.
Good. Well, thank you. Any other questions? Joe, thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us and explain to us what you've been up to and what the school system wants to do.
And I owe you an answer, so I'll find out about that question that you posed earlier. So I'll get back to you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Take care.
Moving right on. We have Alexandra. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here. All right, so good evening, everyone. Alexandra Vecchio, Director of Sustainability and Natural Resources. So I'm here tonight to talk about the Climate Action and Resiliency Plan that the town's developing right now. So some of you, I think, participated in our first public forum, which was a couple months ago now. And that was to gain input on the CARP, the Climate Action and Resiliency Plan. So some of this will be a little bit of a repeat to those of you that were there, but we are continuing to get input on the plan. We have a survey that's out right now. If you haven't taken it, I encourage you to do that and to share it with neighbors and constituents if you're a town meeting member. And we have an upcoming second public forum that will be happening next week, June 17th. So right now, what I'm doing is reaching out to specific boards and committees and commissions in town that have some focus of their work relates to climate change, climate action, either on the mitigation or resiliency side, and just providing that board or commission the opportunity to weigh in on the climate action plan and the components of it as it relates to your scope here with SWAC. So without further ado, I have a brief slideshow just to kind of orient all of us. And then the bulk of this is really an opportunity for you all to share your to share your questions. So climate action and resiliency plan, and appreciate you all having me here so we could talk about solid waste. So just a little bit of an overview. The CARP, which I know is not an acronym that everyone likes, but that's the one we're going with. This is a prioritized action plan that really focuses on both emissions reduction and resiliency solutions. So that's both reducing greenhouse gas emissions that are contributing to climate change and also helping us build resilience and adapt to the problems that are already here from climate change. We are building on previous town planning efforts, and that includes the previous climate action plan, and then obviously getting input from different stakeholders, staff, as well as community members. So we're working with a consultant, Blue Strike Environmental Consulting. They're helping us do a baseline assessment of all of our existing information. They have conducted a municipal and community greenhouse gas inventory to understand our current emissions. They are helping us lead our stakeholder engagement process. And then in addition to creating the plan itself, something that we were really clear about in the RFP for this project was that we don't just want a laundry list of actions. We really want those to be prioritized and those to have implementation strategies. So how do we actually get this goal accomplished? And do that in a way that we can measure the progress and report out on it as well. And this is just my own opinion, but I think one of the challenges that we have is there's a lot of great work happening in Brookline, but we're not necessarily communicating that well to people who care about it and communicating well amongst the different groups. And so my hope is that at the end of this plan, we'll also develop a dashboard that allows us to track progress on the climate action and resiliency plan and be able to better communicate out what the implementation status is on these different things. This is just a quick project timeline overview. So we issued the RFP in December of 2024, and then spent the first couple of months orienting the consultant team on our existing information and developing the timeline and scope for the project itself. And then developed a staff advisory group, which Katie, as our Zero Waste Program Manager, is a member of. Also includes members from staff in building, in health, in emergency management, in our finance office. So a very, as well as many others in DPW, a diverse group of stakeholders there. Since March, we've moved into the public engagement process. And so that kicked off with our first public meeting at the end of March that I referenced. Since then, we've been conducting both staff interviews as well as interviews with the Zero Emissions Advisory Board. As I referenced, we have a public survey out that's out right now, and then we have our upcoming second public meeting happening next week. Once we collect all that information, including these meetings with boards and commissions, that will conclude our engagement process, and then we'll move into strategy development and creating the final plan with a target of presenting that final plan to the select board in November. This entire project was funded through an ARPA grant, so it must be completed by December. That is a very firm deadline. That doesn't haunt me at all. So our baseline assessment, this is really just, as I mentioned, reviewing our relevant plans and reports. That does include the zero waste framework. That was something that was given to the consultant team. They also looked at our urban forest climate resiliency plan. They looked at our existing climate action plan. They looked at the municipal vulnerability preparedness plan, which has a focus on climate resiliency. So there's a lot of information that was given to them. I just bring this up because often, I think as we go through these planning processes, sometimes people can feel frustrated of like, did we already do this? And in some ways we did in different pieces. And so what we're trying to do is really harmonize it and bring it all together. But also specifically really think about, since the last climate action plan, the town has committed itself to net zero carbon emissions by 2040. And so this plan is really a focus on moving us towards that target in particular. This is a quick overview of the greenhouse gas inventory. So on the left side of the screen, these are our emissions related to community activities. On the right side of the screen, you'll see it's related to municipal operations. So community activities are obviously a much more significant portion of the emissions at 295,000 metric ton of carbon dioxide equivalent, and the municipal operations just under 10,000 metric tons carbon dioxide equivalent. So as you can see, a lot of the emissions are a result of our energy that we use. Natural gas, electricity, and then transportation as well. We have a small section there that is solid waste, and that did take into account any waste operations that happens through the town, both with curbside trash, recycling, and also our different zero waste programs, including composting. As you can see, certainly, our fleet makes up a portion of the municipal operations, and then our buildings and facilities is the largest. The other piece that they had us include, which I thought was interesting and something that I really hadn't thought about before, was the commute of our staff coming to and from Brookline. So this is a little bit of an estimate, because obviously we don't have everyone's exact commute path in and the number of days necessarily that folks are working, but we generally looked at both municipal and school employees, what's the zip code they're coming from, and the zip code to Brookline, and the assumption that we had a portion of those folks that were working a few days remote, but with the vast majority coming in 5 days a week, which is a significant portion of the municipal emissions. This just gives you a little bit of an overview of the engagement process, and I won't spend too much time here, just to say that we have been trying to get feedback and input from town staff, residents, businesses, as many different stakeholders as possible throughout the process. Really want the community to feel ownership over the CARP, and certainly to help with the implementation of that. One of the I think exciting things about sustainability work, but also one of the very tricky things is it doesn't just sit in any one box. There's, so many interrelated components. And so for us to really effectively develop this plan, but also to effectively implement this plan, it's really going to require buy-in and support from, people at all levels of the community organization and all levels of the municipal organization as well. So trying to ensure that those voices are heard early in the process, and that we're prioritizing solutions that are both ambitious, but also reasonable within the constraints of the town. So this just gives you a little bit of a taste of what the climate action framework kind of looks like. So basically we'll have climate action and resiliency strategies, and then those will, kind of be in different, I call them buckets, as you see here. So that top row of boxes, starting with buildings and energy, going across to resilience, adaptation, and risk reduction. Those are the different buckets. So buildings and energy, sustainable transportation and mobility, resource conservation and management, natural systems and community well-being, and then resilience, adaptation, and risk reduction. The things that fall below it, those longer bars, are just some examples of things that make as actions that fall into those general strategy categories. That's not to say these are the only things. That's not to say these are the most important things. These are just to kind of help elicit a little bit more what we mean by buildings and energy. We're talking about energy efficiency measures. We're talking about how we procure our energy. And so the one that I think, is certainly most targeted towards SWAC is our resource conservation and management. And that's really where we look at increasing our waste diversion rates, thinking about minimizing our waste generation, and overall the resource conservation that we want to do as a community, which ties nicely to the conversation you just had with Joe. So there's two things that I would like to do with the group this evening. So I'm going to present both of them to you, and then we'll go back to this one and take them in that order, but just so you can kind of see where we're going. One is, looking at those categories, you're welcome to comment on any of the 5 across the top, but in particular, what are some of the climate actions that SWAC feels that should be included in this plan in order for us to think about resource conservation and management? What are some of the waste reduction activities and if appropriate resiliency strategies that we should be thinking about and be including in the scope of this plan? Again, you're welcome to comment on anything at large, but obviously that's one area of expertise you all bring. So then the second piece of the conversation is essentially we're going to have lots of actions, right? This is Brookline. You guys don't have I'm going to say that word. You don't you don't have to do anything. So you give it your all. So I assume that there will be many different actions that come out through the community process, through the survey, that kind of thing. And so instead of it being, the world according to Alexandra and deciding this is the action that we're going to spend the most effort and resources on and is the highest priority and this one's the least, we really want to have a standard set of criteria that we use to help prioritize these different actions. So essentially this will be kind of like a framework that everything gets, put in one end, it runs through this framework, it scores in these different categories, and then it comes out the other end and we say, okay, overall, this has a score of 3.5, and this is where it sits compared to all of the other actions. And so we want to have a standard set of criteria that we're thinking about the climate actions that we're reviewing. So this is a little bit hard to speak about in broad strokes, but some sample criteria that are listed here include the climate impact. So overall, what's the greenhouse gas reduction potential? That's what GHG is, of this climate action, and what's the adaptation potential? So how effective will it be in helping us do our ultimate goal? Then we talk about financial return on investment. Is this thing going to bring money back into the community? Eventually solar panels start generating energy that is actually, cutting money off of our electricity bills. Public visibility and community support. How much of this is helping us to help people make changes in their own lives, helping people learn, take changes back to places that they work or exist outside of Brookline. I always think of a member of Mothers Out Front always talks about composting as the gateway drug for climate action. And I think that's so funny. She's like, it's something super visible. People see, it helps them get engaged. And it's like the first step into possibly a larger environmental change that they're making. And so I think that kind of speaks to the impact with that criteria. So the ease of implementation, is it easy for the end user to do? That could be the end user of the resident, that could be the business, that could be us staff at Town of Brookline, depends on who the action is targeting. Ease of financing, is there money out there? As we know, we have, a different federal government in place right now. A couple of years ago, the grants out there were prolific. Some of those are drying up. And so we have to look at where are we able to find additional sources of funding to do this. I think a lot of people, I will tell you, the climate impact, when we had this conversation at the public forum, was the most important criteria. And while I absolutely understand and respect that, and in my heart want that to be the most important criteria, if we don't have money to do it, it's very, very hard to do. So I am going to challenge people a little bit to think about some of these other criteria and whether some should carry more weight than others as we try to prioritize our action. Ease of implementation for town staff. This one was probably the least popular in the public forum. And I think understandable, but again, some of these actions do require town staff to get things done. I think you all know that from your work on composting in the schools, from curbside composting, heck, from collection of our waste, solid waste as it is. So while not exactly something, super fun to think about, the ability for us to do some of the actions in the plan is dependent on having the resources to do that. So I think both financing and implementation for town staff are ones that aren't super exciting and, snazzy, but are kind of just practical polys. And then finally, equity, are we thinking about this solution in an equitable way, or is it helping those most vulnerable to climate change and having, a larger impact on those that need it? So those are just some sample criteria. So certainly there could be other things that we think about as we, again, assess all of the actions that come out of this planning process. So my question for you all here this evening is, are there any criteria that aren't listed here that you feel like should be? And then assuming that every one of these criteria doesn't carry the same weight in your mind, which of these should be amplified and, have a multiplication of 1.5 or 2 times associated with them. So again, in the effort to help us prioritize those climate action. So those are the 2 focus areas for this conversation, thinking about our solid waste climate actions and what ideas you all have. Again, could be broader than just SWAC, and welcome that. And then the second piece will be around the sample criteria. So I went through that pretty quickly, but I wanted to get to this portion, which is the listening to all of you and share your brilliant ideas. Any immediate questions about kind of big picture before we jump into the overall discussion and activities here?
Does this have just to do with town staff, or are we looking at individual aspects of this?
Yep, both. So it's both what can we do to influence emissions reduction in the community, and then also in our municipal operations. And so, some of those in the community will require some oversight and, probably programmatic support from town staff, but some of them could also be individual actions that are being taken as well. And that I'm pulling this slide back up just to point to the fact that we absolutely have to have community actions taking place, because that is, the bulk of our greenhouse gas emissions.
In regards to people that I speak to, and I would say that there are a lot of folks out there, specifically with present federal government and what direction it's not going in. Everybody is looking at, what is it that I can do that can influence something in my sphere of living? And some of it has to do with not only waste, but also how one lives daily and what people tend to do or not do, whether you drive in a circle to do your errands, or whether you're looking at everything in your house as what it is that you can do that would reduce whatever it is that you haven't been thinking about for a while. And whether it's to give things that you're no longer using to savers, or whether it's deciding to make your lawn a garden that no longer needs to have water. And it's that type of, those are the type of conversations that I seem to have a lot of with neighbors. Sometimes people are just in the supermarket. I mean, it's on everybody's mind, and no one really knows what to do. And so some people are just bummed out all the time. Some people are taking action and getting involved in political aspects, whether it's whatever. But it's those are the things for myself, and also that in how I think people are gonna have to start living to know that they are reducing and having an effect on climate changes and climate reduction. And that is a very, I mean, this is amazing, but it's a very difficult aspect to identify. And then the implementation is more on an individual level. I see it as a DPW aspect, but I think there's more of a how to get individuals to actually internalize what it is they're doing and how they're living and how they can change it, whether it's putting on solar panels, whether it's putting on a solar hot water heating system, getting a hybrid car. I mean, all those types of things are costly, and some people can afford them, some people can't. And it's kind of, for me, that's kind of how I think of climate change and how we need to approach it. But I'm not sure that this hits the mark I'm not sure my ideas hit the mark for this. You'll have to tell me.
Well, no, I mean, I think you bring up a good point, though. There is a question of, these, policy or program meta changes. And then there's a question of how do those drive change at the individual scale that has big enough impact and is, equitable and sustainable. And then also thinking about how people individually can get involved and make a difference through their own individual choices, and making those as easy and accessible as possible, because behavior change is really, really hard. So, and that's essentially what we're talking about, is making pretty substantial behavior changes. So are there ways that we can incentivize those individual changes, make them easier, make them, cheaper, make them whatever the barriers are? Yeah. Clint, Dean, I can't remember who's first.
Going back to your criteria slide, especially given this is barely two changes at the federal level. I think that it's also important to talk about not just climate impacts, but other environmental impacts. So that, it might meet our biodiversity goals, or it might improve our air pollution goals, because, we've got that study we're doing with Northeastern on air quality. And you say, well, okay, how will this improve Brookline's air quality? And that's something maybe about quality of life or livability in there. So there's something that says, it's sort of hinted at with your wellness stuff, but that doesn't seem to come back to the criteria. So I would go, I don't know what slide that was on, but to make sure that they're meshed together. I do think we need to be thinking about these additional impacts. Particularly because, I've talked a lot about toxics, for example, but that's just one thing. I mean, like I said, the air pollution studies and other biodiversity those kinds of things.
Great, thank you.
And yeah, but that's what I say is just this level around the conversation.
Yeah, it's funny, I was thinking the same thing, Clint. Adding in the criterion of public health. I don't know, somehow the health of people is what we're really gonna be worried about as climate gets worse. And that was, to me, should be just front and center, because we just want a healthy population, and certainly more pollution, certainly more terrible storms, certainly more heat. Will seriously impact health. So all of a sudden it's like, boy, we need public health up there, big time. That's one of the criteria, I think. So so going back to the other slide, focusing on SWAC, increased diversion rates. It seems to me, and we've done some of this already, we need to support the Better Bottle Bill, right? We just need that darn bottle bill to pass for the state, because we can't do that on our own. And we have done some of that, and I think we've asked the select board, we write a letter for the select
We
board
wrote a little last May.
to support it, and maybe we need to continue to do that. Maura Healy right now might add that into her environmental bill, but she needs letters of support. But I think our town needs to support those statewide good legislative.
And really some advocacy
I guess
that coordinates at the statewide level
I think
around
so, yeah,
some different waste diversion and mitigation goals.
absolutely. And then pie in the sky, unfortunately, is pie in the sky, but mandatory composting townwide, that is pie in the sky, because people aren't gonna wanna do it, and it's hard to tick off, 50% of the population of the town or more. So, but boy, you do mandatory composting like Hamilton, isn't that the town that did it? And their rates shot up from 20 or 30, maybe 40% at the most, up to 98, 99%. But it was only through mandatory composting. Anyway. Right.
Okay, just follow on, just if I can, one thing Dean said, to go back to the criteria slide, in terms of ease of implementation, that could encompass sort of part of what you're talking about, but maybe in a negative way. Does this solution require state action or federal action in order to be achieved? So that's like a negative ease of implementation.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we want to make that have a positive spin, so it should be have the town advocate for solutions that will at the state and federal level that will make these goals possible. So there's that. There's a flip side to that.
Great.
And we're doing that already a little bit with, like the letters of support that you mentioned and others. I mean, we saw that at a town meeting with the, the super fund and I forget what the other one was that, but, we were advocating as a town for these things. So it's important for the town to be a proactive supporter of some of these statewide initiatives that really can't be scaled at the town level.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah, and I think in the big picture, the big item there is the electricity use, 23%. And, that's something the town can't control, because electricity is still using natural gas, I guess, to generate electricity. So, changing that to all renewables would have a huge impact. The town can't do anything about that, but we can advocate for it.
So really greening the grid kind of at scale,
Right.
Susan, what you're referencing there, right?
Right. But that would have the biggest impact of anything on there. That's, making that electricity 23% or whatever of the consumer community use.
Yep.
At zero.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the town has any control over the electric supply. But our building has, been waiting years to install electric chargers. because I don't know what's going on with, is it National Grid? Eversource?
Eversource.
Yeah. So, they don't have the supply available. I don't know if there's anything the town can do to advocate for increasing the amount of electricity that comes into Brookline, because we're gonna need a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, a big problem.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's something that we talk about a lot, in kind of the climate mitigation space. And, there is actually a regional or anyway, a convening of, at least Metro Boston communities to talk about just that. We're pushing everything towards electrification, electrify our homes, electrify our cars. But do we have the capacity and the grid to handle that? And how do we make sure that we're, building that out in a way that is sustainable, and to your point is clean. So, that's something that I think happens certainly can be advocated for at a municipal scale, but I think requires coordination at a regional scale as well.
Does anybody ever talk about how Hull has done this? I mean, there's great wind power and they actually support most of their town and municipal services through the use of their, I think it's 2 or 3 wind turbines. It seems like I look at my backyard and watch the trees. It seems like we always have enough wind, and that's an alternative that doesn't seem to be considered much. We're still looking at solar and we're looking at, but seems like we could, on top of hills, put some of that as a possibility, and that would also be able to supply some of the electrical requirements.
Hull has a municipal light plant. Makes a difference.
Yeah, I'm a taxpayer. There are 2 wind turbines. There was one, the original one out by Hull High School it's gone offline. They can't find the parts to repair the thing. And the one that used to be in the transfer station, or they're dumped. In the past 2 months, every time I go by it, it's just sitting there. It's not turning. It doesn't seem to be doing anything. So I'm not sure what's going on. But they're not Eversource. They have their own.
Right, so they're a generator, they're a utility, so their turbines are feeding their own utility. So they've got a ready buyer there. That's, we don't have a municipal light company. I think I was looking at, because I just listed it, like Belmont's one of the closest ones to us. There aren't very many. I don't know if we could set one up, but now we're shifting into the solution side. I don't know where you want to be in terms of the discussion.
Well, I mean, I am curious if there are other actions in general that you feel, help us work towards that goal of emissions reduction and resiliency. In particular, maybe some of them are things that require some additional analysis first, but I know that one that you were just talking about was around materials recovery and reduction, particularly as it relates to large scale construction projects. So I don't know if that's something SWAC has thought about. Another thing that's come up in some conversations as well is, looking at deconstruction and how we do materials reduction through both private and public projects as well. And then, something I know that you all have, at least on the periphery, been in the conversation about, but thinking about the procurement of materials and looking at the life cycle carbon analysis that goes into those materials that we as a town buy, or whatever the case may be. So the other thing that I will say that came up at a ZAB meeting, and I told them, I was like, I think you need to talk to my friends at SWAC about this, was they were talking about anaerobic digestion and that as a waste to energy type of function. And is that something that the town should consider? So anything, kind of in any of those categories or others. But I certainly heard about, obviously, Dean, your comment related to compost collection expansion, but other climate actions that you all have talked about or would like to see further investigation on for the town.
I have a question about that. So if you go back to the other slide with the pie charts, so when we're looking at municipal compost, is that which pie would that be in? Is that in community activities? Because it's about private composting, right?
So you mean in terms of the emissions
Yeah, the
from?
accounting, it would be in the solid waste of the
Correct.
community.
Yes, correct.
Trying to think
Yeah.
how that would impact.
Yeah.
So the waste there is that the trash the town generates,
Yeah,
opposed to the trash they pick up, which is on the left
Correct.
side.
and we as in our municipal buildings, we don't compost. That's not something that's required, so,
Right. I don't generate a ton of food waste either. I mean, because again, now we're focused on this, we're talking about 1% of the town, which is 3% of the town
yeah,
overall. So we're talking about, so it's a fraction of 1% of 3%. So there's some value if you go back to the criteria. Is it highly visible? Is it
Yep.
sort of leading by example? Even if it's not having a tremendous impact
mhm,
in terms of absolute numbers, but it's difficult. As you know, going from the magic bullet that says, "Oh, if we just did this, this future would be secure here."
Yeah, and I have a question about these charts. So what about, on the other one, you have trees, thank goodness, and the carbon sink, right?
Mhm.
Sequestering carbon. So that's a huge part
mhm,
of the greenhouse gas
mhm,
emissions, this drawdown. It can
Mhm.
have significant, I don't want to say, I can't say that enough.
mhm,
The trees, the wetlands,
mhm,
just greening Brookline and removing cement, right? Removing pavement, depaving,
mhm,
getting people to get rid of their driveways and make them more porous and
Mhm.
porous sidewalks and streets, et cetera, that's for,
Well, that's the
That's the-
mitigation. So I don't know,
that's-
are you collecting mitigation things? Because that's what Dean's talking about. This is sources. Mitigation is reduction.
it's just so important because they go hand in hand. I
Yeah.
would like to see something that shows if Brookline, this is an example, plants 1,000 trees a year, say that's the goal. I don't know, what is the goal now? You have to plant 600 a year or
yeah,
900?
it's 650.
650, all right. So what I would love to see is that number triple or quadruple. And then showing what the equivalency is, carbon emissions reduction from doing that, and how that's going to offset some of these carbon emissions. Because the benefits are just unbelievable, right? For the future, every year those trees grow, every year they sink more carbon. The heat issues, so the health
Yeah, yeah.
impacts of the trees, the pollution of the air. So on and on and on. I just can't say enough about biodiversity, nature-based solutions needs to, in my mind, a huge priority. That it's low cost and it has significant improvement in our health and our lifestyle, quality of life.
Yeah, so this just reflects overall what we're generating in terms of
Yes.
greenhouse gas emissions.
Yes.
This is just the output of what we have. What these represent are solutions to help us reduce that number. So ideally, we do these things, whatever those actions are, and then in 5 years we look and both of those numbers have gone down. By how much, it'll depend on how quickly we do it and what we do and how we prioritize what is done. But then I think, so that's on the greenhouse gas emissions side of things. On the other side of the equation, I think part of what you were also talking about, Dean, is adaptation as well. So, we have increased storm events, flooding, heat island impacts, all, 90-degree days on the first week of, June, those kind of things that that are here and now, effects that we have to adapt to. And so how do we prepare ourselves and our infrastructure for that? And what do we do so that we're reducing the human and infrastructure damage that's done when that happens? And so that's more in that last category of resilience, adaptation, and risk reduction. And I think in the case of a lot of the nature-based solutions and urban greenery, a lot of those really hit both boxes, both it's a carbon sink, there's, sequestration value of those, but also they're building resiliency as well.
Yeah, so they're super important.
Another thought I had is to make sure that the town rules and regulations, bylaws, whatever, are consistent with reducing CO2 as much as possible. An example I can think of is, and I don't know what the rule is about this, if you can take your reusable container to Stop and Shop and get potato salad put in it, is that allowed? And is there a way that, the town can generate a regulation about that allows it safely?
Got it. So really thinking about ways that, to ensure that some of those individual actions that people might want to take in terms of materials reduction and waste reduction are permissible
and safely, and maybe there's some criteria people can you can develop or something for how people can do those actions safely. When safety is important.
So you're talking about zoning regulations, health regulations, whatever regulations might be, blocking those kinds of solutions. Susan, is that right?
Yeah. Right.
All right. Well, I realize that I've gone over on time here. So I will stop there and let folks have any other ideas or strategies that they want to share. I do think that I should have clarified this. Our greenhouse gas inventory really has a focus on scope 1 and scope 2 emissions and some scope 3 emissions. And so I think the reason that the pie chart that you see here for solid waste has a smaller percentage is because scope 3 emissions are a lot of the ones that look at the upstream, greenhouse gas emissions of making a particular product or a particular material. And so that's not within this is following kind of standard greenhouse gas inventory protocol. So it's not to say that this isn't correct. It's just to say that I think some of the things that you all think about in the waste world aren't fully captured because those would classify as scope 3 emissions. So I think in general, I would say that given that it's a small percentage of the emissions, things like solid waste and water and wastewater and some of those other street lights, some of those other smaller pieces of the pie aren't going to get the same level of attention in the action plan. And maybe that's rightfully so, because those aren't the biggest piece of the pie itself. But I think to the extent that there are some high level targets or data sets that SWAC feels like could benefit our overall zero waste goals, and certainly have a overall impact on the town, both through greenhouse gas reductions, but also just on our solid waste goals. We would love to hear those, because I think that's not something that as many groups or people in town are thinking about. Not everybody likes to talk trash like all of you. So that's an important one. So if you have any other suggestions or ideas as it relates to both action items or different criteria that we prioritize those action items using, you can always reach out to me. And you can also join us at our second public forum on Tuesday, June 17th. It'll be at Ridley School. So if you use in the multipurpose room there, and that will be an in-person event, not hybrid. So we will post the meeting materials afterwards. And like I said, we also have a survey that is closing at the end of this week wait, what day is today?
Yeah.
Yep. The end of this week, that we would love you all to take. So any questions about the CARP at any point, you can email sustainability@brooklinema.gov. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Fabulous.
Thanks
Alexander,
for doing this, Alexandra. It's great.
Thank you.
I think you've probably told us, what are fugitive emissions?
Those are emissions that are generated outside of our scope of emissions within town. So without, so those are emissions that are coming from the
Surrounding area?
yeah,
No,
not so
like gas leaks. Gas
Like-
leaks would be a
Gas leaks.
fugitive emission, wouldn't it?
it would be like emissions that are coming from either the transmission of energy to Brookline or yes, I guess gas leaks could be another one. But basically the emissions that are from the actual transportation of the energy itself on site. So that's a harder one to control unless you're generating your own energy.
Okay. And the survey is good until, I thought the survey was gonna be over on June 6th or something.
But then I extended it because I wanted to get a few more people in. We
I noticed one thing, I started to do the survey and I thought, well, I kind of want to see what all the questions are. That would help my thinking. But when I got to the end, it didn't allow me to go back and,
yeah.
I don't know if that's something that could be changed at all, but
I think that's just like the survey program that we're using. I
Yeah.
don't think that it allows that, but did you actually complete things and then hit submit, or did you just
no,
try to
well, I
click?
completed some of them and then, I said, oh, wait a minute.
It's probably your session time.
Where are they
Start
leading
again.
me?
Well, anything that's either, we have a few past completed responses or people that just clicked through and wanted to look at it, but then didn't actually want to
Yeah.
complete it or whatever, got confused.
Okay.
Anyway, so those are all, that's null data that will be removed from the data set. So if you would like to
Do it
take a do-over, I would encourage you to take a do.
Create a new email
How many?
address.
We have about 500.
That's awesome. That's great.
You good?
Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Thank you.
Sandra.
Okay. Thank you.
Shall we move on to the DPW report?
Yes, DPW report, please.
Alrighty.
Always exciting.
A relatively brief one.
Yeah, so we just had our, one of our last town run amnesty weeks. Took place May 27th to the 31st. We had 22 trash complaints. We went out, staff went out, wrote 71 trash violations. It was 59 actual citations and 12 warnings. The tickets were for fines. We've been constantly getting phone calls fighting them now at this point, saying it's not our stuff. It's placed there by somebody else.
Oh, boy.
We're hoping in the future, I was just thinking about this and, didn't put it on, but we have this illegal dumping sticker that we're starting to kind of implement out there. It's just an orange sticker. It's got a QR code you can scan, go, right to the website. There's plenty of good Samaritans in this town that might just scan it and just want it off the street, and maybe that'll work, but
Wait a minute, John, I'm not sure what what do you do with that?
what the sticker
Yeah, the sticker goes on what?
goes on the item.
An item that was placed on the
Sidewalk, and not, like, if we get there and we're gonna see an item, we're gonna check to see if there's a complaint that's illegally dumped. If it's not a complaint, we're gonna put it on the item and take down the address. We're also gonna, leave a warning on the door so that people know what dumped there, and then you know, see if, you know, maybe that gets their attention to actually scan, scan the item, book it for, to be removed, or we'll go back and, we're gonna take down the address, and then if the complaint does come in, oh, by the way, that was illegally dumped, we're gonna have a more further conversation with that resident, like, why did you wait until after the sticker was put on there to kind of report it, and,
So it's
all
for
that.
violations,
Yeah,
not for pickups.
yes, and then, and right now we're doing kind of, Amnesty Week cleanup, I don't know how many court cases we have coming up, but there's quite a few. There's quite a few. So, we're still in the process, this May one isn't really the, the beast that, September is the big one, so, but having not going to be involved so much with like the collection physically anymore, hopefully, our staff will be able to kind of get out there and get word out a little bit better than in previous events. So
Are these examples of things that were put on the street, nobody called in?
yeah, these are just examples, of people that didn't schedule items. We put out the release saying every bulk item needs to be scheduled now. I mean, it was always supposed to just be excess, overflow bags.
Yeah.
But we really kind of got away from it, especially with, just the way the streets look. We want the streets to be clear and all that. So we just started kind of taking all the excess items, but, looking at how much, money the town, we're looking for the town to generate some revenue off of this. And we saw how much, September was, what the town is missing out on some of that. And while we do still get plenty of these instances, I gotta say that we have a pretty good turnout in terms of people actually calling in and scheduling items. I thought this would be a lot harder when we went to a pay for bulk service, but it's really, the illegal dumping isn't as much as I thought. And yeah, people really have kind of accepted that, hey, every other city in town does this. So,
That table looks pretty good. I think we can find out.
do you want to see if it's still there? It's still there.
Let's bring it to the swap shop.
Well, that's something that Wellesley has done, and they're so successful.
Yeah.
in that, and I always wondered why Brookline didn't set that up, and maybe we don't have room. But
Swap shop.
a swap shop, yeah.
So there's this volunteer.
There's a
product.
volunteer run. It would just require a lot of staff time, I think, to coordinate and organize the volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah, Newton does one, but it's all volunteer run aside from the
Cambridge does
couple.
one as well.
Yeah,
And that's volunteers.
yeah.
Mhm.
Aside from like a couple DPW staff that's just kind of on the premises, it's really like they get a lot of volunteers that donate their time to that. So
I think Cambridge's is run by their equivalent of SWAC and then outsourcing.
Mhm.
Really?
Like, I know.
Not in reservations where it was a swap.
Shop run by.
See, that would be something I would.
Work off your channel.
It's going to solid waste disposal. But it's really interesting how the hazardous waste drop off. It's very successful.
Yeah.
And so I figured, why couldn't we move
Percentage
That-
was much smaller.
that stuff into that type of thing where people could bring their stuff instead of putting it on the street?
I still get a lot of people that go, why aren't you open more times per year or multiple days a week? And I'm like, we already offer
Yeah,
24 to 27 events a year. Like, if you can't find a Tuesday to come up during that, I go try to get rid of your stuff in Boston. It's impossible. Like, it really, we just had a conversation with DEP and they're like, after Eleanor submitted all of our events and one of their staff contacted me like, you're doing all of these events? We're like, yeah, they're like,
they couldn't believe it.
yeah, and that's not even I don't think you even submitted the full year of what we're doing. I think you just did like May through June and yeah, so they got a whole list still coming to them. So
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, that's unfortunate.
I love the swap shop.
Jerry said.
we had a very successful, albeit very cold, DPW day. We had about 500 graders attend from the schools, and about 40 private school students also attended in the afternoon, which is great. As well as a number of Brookline families, and it was really exciting to see how knowledgeable the students were, specifically the Brookline school students, and seeing how much I was shocked and really happy to see both how much the schools that does compost, how well they were with our sorting activity,
Oh, good.
but then also seeing on the flip side how knowledgeable and excited about composting the students at schools that don't compost
Oh, really?
were as well. Yeah.
Oh, good.
So I was really happy to see both sides. And a lot of kids are talking about how they do it at home or how they already, oh, this is an easy question. I know what compost is. So it's great to see their reactions to what Katie and I were doing. And then we were also able to provide way stations for the student and staff meals at that day as well. And then our South Brookline clothing and textile drive was really successful. It was our first time having a recovery event in South Brookline for textiles. And we weren't really sure what it was going to look like, especially given its proximity to our 24-hour Helpsy bins. But we had 51 attendees, and about 20 of them also donated to Thrifty Threads as well. So we had residents pre-label their bags if they wanted to donate higher quality materials to Thrifty Threads. So we had about a little less than half of the folks donated. We collected about 2.3 tons in total. And this comes from 3 different buckets. The amount that was given to Thrifty Threads, the amount donated day of the event to Helpsy. Then we also had to have a not a last minute, but an extra pickup of our Helpsy bins that same weekend. And we were told that we should include that in our event total because they come by on Friday and they came by on Sunday again to grab all the material that was there. And it had been completely filled, overflowing just in that 2-day period. So we believe that was from folks not being able to attend our event, but still wanting to participate in donating through the bins because we were promoting those in our material as well. And we were really excited to be able to promote local clothing recirculation efforts, and Thrifty Threads is really excited to partner with us. So I think hopefully that's something that we might be able to do again in the future.
Susan has a question.
Yeah, she's clapping.
I'm clapping.
Thanks.
Well, that's what that is.
The Helpsy bins that are at the transfer station,
Mhm.
that they are on the weekends, they're always full.
They're
Yeah,
always full.
It's just, it's. I
We
mean, I
actually
don't-
just today put in a request for additional bins. 'Cause
Yeah.
They're just now.
I
so
don't
popular.
go on weekends there because I can't
Yeah.
fit
Yeah.
anything in there.
yeah.
It's impressive.
We've finally gotten word out about them.
Yeah.
Now it's just a matter of spreading them across Brookline a little bit more actively. So
And a lot of folks were excited to hear about Thrifty Threads. They didn't know about the organization and were excited that it is in North Brookline. So they're like, oh, we could be bringing our material so much closer to where I live in North Brookline.
Which is
Great.
great stuff.
And then share with the rest of the DPW.
I'll jump in quickly and just share that we submitted our annual RDP grant. We're on track to receive just shy of $40,000 if everything goes as it should. So we'll find out come September if we're awarded those.
Sorry, what does RDP stand for?
Recycling dividends program.
It's the D program.
Is that about
we
what
have so many
Is
points.
that what you got last year?
Yeah, we received about 42,000 last year. They change the questions each year, and unfortunately, they've changed some recently in a way that make us ineligible. So for instance, as John said, we do so many hazmat events, more than I think any other municipality that I know of.
Mhm.
And yet to be eligible for hazmat points, you need to offer an event at least once every month for an entire year. So previously it had been you had to offer them a certain number of times within 6 months, but now it has to be within 12 months. So
We're working on fighting that one though.
Yeah.
Hopefully the next round, I'm like, come on,
Where
bro.
was the grant? Oh, that's Pat's.
it's Mass DEP.
Oh, All right. I know you call it that one.
Maybe you can help pull us be straight.
Yeah, yes.
Um,
And
that would
average
be
it
great.
out to more than one per month. Is it-
I know.
I know.
But they are very, very specific in their
Yeah.
wording, that they are not allowing people to change. So,
Yeah,
um,
let's talk on who your contact is.
okay, we can talk
Yeah.
offline about it.
Yeah. Make a phone call.
And I guess I'll pass it over to you and Kevin, if you want to give a little update on the concept business.
Kevin, do you want to, or?
Yeah, that's fine. Hi, everybody. Good to see you all again tonight. Sorry I couldn't be there tonight, but just a little update on the transition from town source resources to contractual services for trash collection. Obviously, it went to a town meeting vote. Surprisingly, it was a little overwhelming how much support we went with the contractor over the town forces. We were, we didn't know how that was going to go, but fortunately enough, it went the way we needed it to go. I just want to thank SWAC for supporting us at DPW during this very difficult time and decision that we had to make regarding outsourcing the collection of solid waste to contractual. It was a very difficult decision for us, very difficult time for us to get through. But we really appreciate the support that SWAC gave us with all the public hearing meetings. And I especially want to thank John for coming out to town meeting and speaking on our behalf for that during a town meeting.
You have two Johns. You're thanking both Johns. This
Yeah,
guy,
John.
No.
this guy swung the vote.
Yeah.
All you.
To the boat,
So
Joe.
again, I want to thank everybody so much for your support for DPW during this time. As far as the transition going, we are meeting with Casella this week to go over all the logistics to make sure that it's going to be a smooth transition, make sure that they're all on the same page as we are, and that hopefully the only noticeable change that you will see out there is the color of the trucks. So that being said, if anybody has any other questions regarding the contract, I'm happy to take a jab at it.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Amazing.
Can't they paint the trucks red?
But they will have some magnet signs on them saying that they are collecting trash for Brookline. So
That's great.
And good.
Great job.
Are we,
I think the only other thing I just wanted to briefly mention is my position has officially been posted. So if you're interested in sharing with your networks, I'd be happy to share the job listing with you. And as I mentioned in my email, it's going to be relatively slow transition. So I'll be, you'll have to deal with me for a few more months. But I just wanted to reiterate, what a privilege and a pleasure it's been working with all of you and getting to know you. I mean, it's not goodbye. I'm still gonna be seeing you all around, I'm sure, and working with you in some capacity. I wanted to share my thanks again in person.
it's always a pleasure to work with you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
congratulations. Many congratulations.
Yes.
Alexandra
Yes.
Luxotti.
as you can notice, I'm not promoting that.
Staff.
What was that, Kevin?
As you can notice, I'm not promoting that it's being posted already. So.
You lost, Kevin. You lost the battle. Maybe you'll win the war. Just have to let it go.
Okay, any other business?
couple items. One, I just wanted to mention, since we touched on town meeting, the natural segues to mention that the two plastics warrant articles were passed. Thanks to Brenda Hucker. That's so we passed the ones that SWAC endorsed. So, but they did pass, in case you hadn't heard, the expanded bag ban, and then the packaging sustainable packaging bylaw was updated to include explicitly ban black plastic. So even if it suddenly becomes recyclable, we're not going to be allowing it. And the other thing that was added was skip the stuff, just as a reminder, the optional accessories. So,
Yeah, okay.
number one passed unanimously, and turned out skip the stuff and black plastic are both kind of trendy. Traditional bylaws have been more on polystyrene foam bans and plastic bag bans, but two things. I mean, sometimes they were combined, but there were other towns that also banned black plastic and also did skip the stuff. Where 3 years ago there were none of these. So it's a sort of a recent trend within the municipal regulation of solid waste.
We know you're always ahead of the curve, Clint.
And then second, I just wanted to mention, I'm sure John will be able to sympathize with you, John Dempsey. Since the weather's getting better, there's more people outside, all our public bins are being actively used. I've been filing overflow complaints. They seem to be nearly constant. And I have to say the quality of the recycling is terrible. There seems to be more composting and trash going on in the recycle bins. They're getting jammed, especially once they have the drawers. The drawers are always getting jammed. I'm always trying to untangle drawers. It's really disgusting. I don't even want to do it. It's not always successful. Sometimes I am, but we really have to. I feel like we really need to rethink particularly the recycling bins. They're not working. The quality is terrible.
Are you noticing that particularly on like in the commercial areas or in parks and like
more in the
retail?
commercial areas, I would say, but the problem with the parks, it's birthday party season. So
Yeah.
there's 500 pizza boxes, 75 soda things, and it's just,
Yeah,
so it's both really.
yeah.
I
I think the commercial areas are challenging for a lot of reasons. We have, I will say, increased, we now have a new shift for our trash truck that picks up in public areas. And that is run through the Parks Division. So the upcoming change with curbside trash collection won't be affected by this. They will still be picking up trash in the public areas. And so we now have somebody that's on a shift where they're working on
Saturday.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
I did see a truck this last weekend, but
That's our truckman Sunday.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we have
Sunday
them
late,
coming in
that's
for
good.
10 4-hours.
So are they
Four 10-hour shifts.
Did they have a list of once they're supposed to hit?
So they
Or
look
is it
at the,
complaint driven?
so it's both. So they look at there's ones that are just used all the time. Like if you don't go to Skyline and Lars and Cypress every day, then like I could drive a trash truck and know to do that, so it's very obvious. And then we also look at the Big Belly report for like how full things are. And then it's also okay, what complaints have we gotten as well? So, but that's just on the trash side. I think what I'm hearing you say is that part of this is also jamming on the recycling side. And so that's a challenge because Casella picks that up. Sometimes it's too contaminated and they are not picking that up and they're making that message known to John King, their point of contact. And so then, depending on what day it is, what time it is, whatever, then it's not until John's able to get that message to someone on the Parks trash truck to say, you're going to have to go and empty it. And our staff will not empty the recycling without being explicitly told to do so, because they've been yelled at too many times by people saying, like, how dare you just throw away all the recycling? And they don't want to get into an altercation with people trying to explain, like, it's actually garbage. So they have to be like explicitly directed to do it by John or another supervisor in Parks before they're going to do that. So it's a challenge, and honestly, Clint, it like breaks my heart a little bit, but I have like briefly talked to the commissioner of like, do we even want public recycling in
I'm ready to
the
vote
commercial
now,
ways?
because when the trash fills up, they just put it in the recycling anyway. Or you'll see people, I mean, I can't tell how many like dog feces bags
So
going to the
many.
recycling bin. Again, because it's easy. They can just like, sometimes it depends on if it's the open slot,
Yeah,
it just goes right in. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, and these are supposedly responsible dog owners who live in the town of Brookline.
yeah,
It's a nightmare, the recycling bins. And I just think we just needed to make them all trash and they need to be picked up on the weekends because it can't, it sounds like we're doing that, but you can't have these things just sitting there, that it's overflowing and it's.
Yeah.
A lot of times, I don't even know how you get complaints because if the door jams, the red light doesn't necessarily go on. So it's just sitting there full.
mhm,
And then people, then of course, as John well knows, people keep stuffing things there anyway. So that you see the door half open and they're still putting stuff in.
yeah,
So it's just, the doors don't work really great. I know we're trying to prevent trash, but I still see little people put them in like shopping bags, plastic shopping bags, which will be gone soon. But, they put a shopping bag in either drawer and it jams.
yeah,
So
So
there's
maybe
just
we
a lot of
need to
problems.
do a sort of best practice research on towns, around the country. Best practices, public space recycling, because of course, we're not alone here. And maybe some couple of municipalities have figured out some cool things to do. I don't know.
Good idea.
I mean, I think if we were gonna move away from public recycling, I would maybe suggest that we consider piloting it in the commercial areas, because we do see. Because the crazy thing that drives me nuts that Katie and Eleanor and I have talked about a lot is like, we have very good curbside recycling, very little
Yeah.
contamination there. But it's not like you suddenly forget the rules when you go out into the park,
Oh, no, they do.
So I mean, I guess maybe you do, but that's weird. I assume that some of this is transient populations, people who are coming through Brookline to shop, to work, to visit a friend, but aren't, familiar with recycling as well. And I think that that's probably a higher density of that population is captured in the commercial areas versus the park areas.
I've been
So
at Emerson Park. All kind of places. It's just,
I wonder if making the units standalone would help, rather than next to each other. Maybe people are just like, they're just, one's equal to the other,
Well, I
maybe
think,
having them being a little separated.
I think the issue is what was saying, the opening of the recycling. It's just
Well,
so
that
much
too, yeah,
easier and
yeah.
it's so like,
we are trying to
People
move
do
away
think
from
it-
those.
yeah.
Like the new ones that we're ordering do have a lid on them, like a door that
Yeah.
closes like the trash, but then to
but at
Clint's
least they
point,
don't get jammed. I mean, what happens is the bin might be half empty.
Yeah.
And then the door is jammed.
Yeah.
And the door is not your friend.
yeah,
I think
I think it's just hard because folks say, oh, it's so much easier for me to or it's more sanitary to just put it in the open.
and they don't want to put it on the side. If the trash is full, they're not going to put it next to the trash because that can create a rat problem or something like that. So it's probably better to put it in the recycling and they'll sort it, they'll figure it out, but it's the quality is terrible, just disgusting stuff.
I mean, I am honestly curious. I know Newton in the past year or so have changed their kind of the infrastructure their bins so that now they both open the same way, they're cycling in the trash. I'm curious if it's made any difference. Like, I'm curious what their data is. Like, has that actually made an impact?
Yeah.
And is it worth our while?
The one I noticed was the one outside the Brookline Village Post Office. That's where I spent a lot of time on Saturday, and I gave up and I filed a Brookline Online complaint. And I filed it because I know, not because I'm expecting to come and pick it up within 30 minutes, but just so you can see, sort of trend, the the reports that, they're getting jammed a lot.
Yeah.
It's not just anecdotal, it's just some quantitative data to say
yeah,
what's going on.
it's definitely.
And that's one that's dueling doors, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Brookline
Yeah.
Village. And, right across the street, that I think is paid for by Netta, is another pair. And people won't go across the street to throw it out.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I don't know, I think we need to talk to the ice cream place who's doing a great job with providing compostable materials. But then everyone thinks they're recyclable, and I saw them all in the recycling bin. So I saw the compostable plastic in the recycling bin. So they need to, need to do work, some emergency reply, say, put up signs and say, this stuff, our serviceware is not recyclable. It's trash, or you have to take it home and put it in your compost.
They're not collecting compost themselves.
It would be cool if they searching out.
Yeah. I'm not trying to pick out that. It's a great store, they're great products, and they're compliant, like many of our retailers, but they're hurting us on the trash side.
maybe we consider another food waste drop-off bin location close to businesses that offer.
I don't think there's much being thrown away. It's not like there's lots of tons of ice cream in there.
That's true. Ice cream would be rough.
Okay, anything else, any other business?
I just had a quick thing to mention. I was looking ahead at our dates for July and August. I know we're supposed to be meeting the Tuesday prior to 4th of July. I didn't know if folks, I can still make that work. I don't know if other folks wanted to do
I'm
so.
gonna be away, the first 2 weeks of July.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting to me.
It's not a good week for me either. But
We could skip a
can
month.
Everybody has skipped July.
Skip a month.
We can skip July. and See what's coming up in August.
Yeah, and then in August, Katie, well, I'm sure, we'll be at National Night Out. That is also the day that we were supposed to have our.
August 5th.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know if that's something where we just want to pivot to another day that week or just the following Tuesday, the 12th. But I have just been looking ahead at the summer.
I can do the 12th. Are you? Anybody
I'm
else?
thinking if there's nothing urgent,
Yeah,
But if there is, that we're moving the date to the 12th,
move the date to the 12th.
does that work for people? Jerry?
I'm thinking that's gonna be a problem for me, but I'm not sure yet.
Yes, not good.
and we can also always change it too as we get closer to August. I just wanted to,
So are we keeping it on the 5th at the moment?
No, we can't.
No,
do that.
Or can't do that?
well,
But two people already, well, you can't do the,
I don't think I
You
I'm
can.
can't-
not sure about
and
the.
John's not sure.
oh, okay.
we can
Alright.
also reopen this discussion. I
Yeah,
just wanted to-
yeah, by email.
Eleanor, I appreciate your thinking ahead.
I love that.
It's always on
I
top
do
of that.
everything point to point navigation. you know, can't pick it up. Okay.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.
Aye.
Very much.
Night, Susan.
Thank you.
Kevin.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to see you all.
Thanks, Kevin.
Susan.
Thank you for these.